Government, law enforcement, media, we don't always see eye to eye. Things don't always reconcile. But I could tell you firsthand from the people I've spoken with in my circles in a lot of agencies here in town, the relationship, the work by the media, the patience from the media has been nothing short of exceptional. It's encouraging to see when things go so horribly wrong, and it's the worst of times. It brings out some of the best in people. And that's what we've seen here with the media. You've been tremendous at amplifying messaging to tamp down a lot of misinformation, and we all know how misinformation can really start to take root and become the story. So wanted to start there today and just to express our heartfelt thanks to everyone in the room. And we continue to urge you to be patient. There's still some things that we just don't have answers for, and we will as things develop, but this is a process. It's going to be a painstakingly thorough process, and that's what we're here to talk about this afternoon. Just to give you a little bit of run of show of what we're going to be discussing this afternoon, I've got with me the mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles. She's going to kick it off in just a couple of moments to talk about how the community's really come together and done things in what a lot of us call here in town the Charlotte way. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rob Tafano. I'm with the city of Charlotte. Following the mayor, we've got Chief Putney with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department to go into, I guess, a 30,000-foot view to the extent that he could about the current state of the developing investigation. And I do want to say that developing is the operative word there. There's quite honestly going to be some things that he just can't naturally speak about because this is a developing investigation that's underway. We also have Chief Baker with UNCC Police. A lot of you heard from him last evening. He's here to talk about some of the exceptional work that was undertaken by his men and women in law enforcement and the partnership that we saw develop yesterday that literally saved lives. He's got a couple of officers with him today from UNCC Police who just played such a critical role in minimizing some of the tragedy. This could have been, you thought this was tragic, this could have been a heck of a lot worse had it not been for some of the exceptional work by some of the men and women of his department and other departments. Closing it out this afternoon, we'll have the Chancellor Dubois with UNCC to talk about how the university moves on. You know, there's a family, and that's exactly what he will try to underscore this afternoon. As you can see behind me, we've got a variety of people, everyone from the student body president of the campus. We've got our district attorney, Spencer Merriweather, our sheriff, Gary McFadden of Mecklenburg County, fire Deputy Chief Cynthia Bonham. She's over emergency management. We've got representatives from Medic, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department's resident survival or mass survival trainer in John Frisk. Will make him available for one-offs. When all of these folks are through, we'll open it up to questions. We'll do our level best to get those questions answered. And I want to start off by introducing the mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles.
Good afternoon. We, all of us, everyone in this community stands in shock and grief. We know tragedies like this can divide a community or can bring us together. It is our choice of how we move forward. I believe in this city. It is a time for unity, and I certainly appreciate the last 24 hours since this tragic shooting, how this community has held together and held Charlotte strong. One of the things I want to say is that I have really great appreciation for the cooperation that we've had from Governor Cooper and his team, as well as the University of North Carolina system, our congressional delegation, our local delegation, our legislative leadership. They've all reached out and asked what's necessary for them to do to help us heal. We've also heard from the White House. The President's office called and asked, what do we need? You know, it's kind of hard to say what you need to be in this position today to stand before people who have experienced this loss and this terror. But what I believe is working together, all of us, we're all going to lean in. Now, I know many of you will have questions about the next steps, and there are people here from our chiefs to any person that can talk to you about what has happened in the next steps. But really, just like in any other situation, there is an investigation. And that investigation is thorough enough to fill in the questions and the answers to your questions, to fill in those blanks. Let us take that time and let that investigation go forward in respect for those who have lost their lives, in the respect of those that are still suffering from injuries, in respect for our university. This is our university. It is our time. You know, I've gone to many, many conferences where I've seen other mayors talk about the experience of standing here. And here I am today, whether it's Florida, Las Vegas, now it's Charlotte. And so we have to support each other in the days and weeks to come. I want to add my thanks to the first responders who arrived quickly and acted to save lives and acted to keep people safe. That's what they do. That's what they're trained to do. So I want you to know, on behalf of the mayor and the city council and every locally elected official in this county, we know who we are, and we know our values, and we need to stand for them. We're Charlotte. We're going to open our hearts and our minds. We're going to work hard to build this community because we are resilient. We are Charlotte. Thank you very much. May God bless everyone in our county and our city for how we move forward to be held together. It is our choice. Now I'd like to ask Chief Putney to join the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Putney. I'm the Chief of Police at the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. The reason I'm here is our organization now takes lead. We're going to be the primary investigative organization for this incident. The UNC Charlotte Police Department is primary. This is their jurisdiction here on campus. So to support their efforts, our job now is to be primary in how we investigate, how we bring all the pieces together and try to establish the sequence of events that you all covered yesterday. The other thing that we're going to do is then present that case to our district attorney, Mr. Merriweather, who's going to, at that point, move the case through the courts. Professionally, this has been a tough day for us. It really was. I hearken and take great comfort in the fact that so many partners who've been training together performed just as we suspected. When we were at our worst, our people performed at their best, and I'm proud of that. It's humbling. From UNC Charlotte at the initial response to our officers at CMPD, especially those tactical officers and University City officers who were first on the scene to support. We had the Sheriff's Office. We had obviously the fire and medic, first responders coming to render aid. We even had our federal partners on scene very quickly, ATF and FBI, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigations. This is still the initial phases of an investigation, as the mayor alluded to. It's going to take us some time to really figure out all of that happened, and more importantly, the why, which leads me to the personal. Many of you may not be aware, this is my alma mater. I went to school here at UNC Charlotte. So it's not just professional, it's personal. This is our city. So it's also personal. Also, we talk about heroism, and you're going to give first responders, and you're going to hear about a couple professionals who were extremely heroic in their response to this incident, which obviously saved lives. What you may not hear is the first and foremost hero, as far as I'm concerned, and his name is Riley Howell. He was probably the second fatality in this incident. His family, as you might imagine, is traumatized. They're devastated. But when I spoke to the father, one father to another, I told him personally, I wish I had words. What I did tell him is we're committed to the work. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We assured him we're going to find out the why. We're going to give them closure. But his son, seeing exactly what was going on, did exactly what we train people to do. You're either going to run, you're going to hide and shield, or you're going to take the fight to the assailant. Having no place to run and hide, he did the last. But for his work, the assailant may not have been disarmed. Unfortunately, he gave his life in the process. But his sacrifice saved lives. So the professional, I walked you through it. It's an investigative process, very sterile. We're going to be committed to a fact-finding mission that takes time. We're going to seek justice. We're going to leave no stone unturned. Our detectives are working around the clock to do just that. But on the personal, we got to help our community heal. We got to continue to work as partners. And we got to convince our young people the way to resolve minor conflicts is not through gun violence. I'll turn it over now to Chief Baker, and then the Chancellor, and then we'll entertain any questions you might have. Chief?
Good afternoon. I want to start by saying that, one thing, many of the organizations that university chiefs are members of, we talk about how to train better, how we can prepare for incidents just like this. But all of us think to ourselves, we really hope we never face this. I mean, who would? But we do train, and it's the last thing you would think would happen. Yesterday, as I mentioned before, it was absolutely the most devastating incident that we could ever imagine at UNC Charlotte, where we are a very close-knit family. We're a family of 30,000 students, 5,000 faculty and staff, and in many ways, I feel like the de facto father. So it is tougher because what I want to do every day, and our officers really try their very hardest to do, is to provide safety and security to our entire community on this 1,000 acres. And when we're faced with something like this, I can't tell you, the feelings, the sorrow, and certainly having to face all of what we are today. But with that, I will say that the collaboration between the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, our department, Charlotte Fire, and a multitude of agencies is what really made this, it pulled this together, it meshed the incident, and we were able to see some success within our response. And one thing I do want to say also is, so today I brought forth two of our officers that were the first officers on the scene in the Kennedy building. They acted exactly as trained, and that is, we don't sit, we don't wait, we go. And we're going to go to the assailant. And that's exactly what they did. So what I'd like to do now is introduce to you two of the first officers on the scene yesterday. Sergeant Rick Gundacker and Lieutenant Sarah Smyer. Both are exceptional officers within our department, and I can't tell you about the great job that they did. Rick, I'd like Rick to say a few words.
Good afternoon. I never thought I'd have to do this, but unfortunately today I do. I would just like to reiterate what Chief Baker said, and the main point for law enforcement of this incident is that the training that we've been through. I've been preparing for this for over 20 years. In my mind, I'm trying to get officers to prepare for it in their minds, what they would do. I'm very pleased to say I'm proud of myself and all the officers that responded to this scene. I was the first one in there. The actions I took in there, I'm not going to get into great detail, but I did. But when I turned around, Lieutenant Smyer was there. Numerous other officers were there inside the building to help our kids. So the training pays off, and that's why we do it. And I feel this community is a lot safer for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go back. So with that, I'm going to turn it now over the podium over to Chancellor Phil Dubois.
Good afternoon. Let me echo my thanks for all the first responders, including our own folks who acted so bravely. It was obviously a team effort. This is still very raw for us, and we're working our way through in our community. I also want to acknowledge that from across the country, I've heard from literally dozens, if not hundreds, of university presidents who've offered their support for our institution. Some of them have gone through incidents like this. Many just hope they never will. And they've been tremendous in reaching out to me personally. And let me thank you, the media. As I said, this is still pretty raw, pretty emotional, and I appreciate your sensitivity and your expressions of concern for our campus. Let me give you some just easy logistics about how we're moving forward. We will go back to normal operating status at midnight. And what that means at a practical level is that employees will report for work in the morning, and we'll have operations as we would on any given day. Exams will remain canceled through Sunday. You will recall that yesterday was the last day of class, so there is no class for the rest of the week anyway. Friday would have been a reading day. We are simply not going to have exams. Students will take those exams next week sometime, but we're affording maximum flexibility to the faculty to decide how to deal with each and every student based upon their individual levels of readiness to take an exam based on their emotional condition. We are also giving maximum flexibility to the students who would otherwise go through graduation. We don't care whether or not they've finished all their coursework. We don't care whether or not they finished all their exams. If they intended to walk, they'll walk. And we'll worry about the details of certifying their degrees later. And again, we're giving our faculty maximum flexibility to make that determination. There will be some kind of announcement today coming out of the provost's office that gives the faculty specific guidance on how to proceed. Commencement will go on as scheduled. That means that Thursday at 4 o'clock we'll have the doctoral hooding ceremony. Friday at 1 o'clock we'll have the first of 3 ceremonies for undergraduate and master's students. And then Saturday we have 2 ceremonies at 10 and 3 o'clock. Those will go on as scheduled. One of the people receiving their degree this week is Emily Haupt, one of the victims and one of the injured. And we're delighted she'll be there to go across the stage. I had an occasion this morning to visit the hospital downtown and visited with 3 of our injured students, Drew Piscaro, Emily, and Rami Alda Madhan. I apologize for my pronunciation. He's our Saudi Arabian student who is a freshman here. I did not get a chance to talk to Sean DeHart. He had also been released yesterday. I had a chance to visit with the 3 families and the students. They're all doing okay. And I expect that the hospital will have announcements about their status as they are released. I've reached out to the families of our the 2 students we lost, Reed Paulier and Riley Howell, but I have not yet received a phone call in return, and I think you could imagine those families are traumatized and they don't need to talk to me right away. But what I will say to them if I get a chance to talk to them is that we are available 24/7 to support their recovery. We will also, for our community, have a vigil tonight being organized by our students at 6 o'clock in Halton Arena. We have also done some things that are, we think, important for community building and community rebuilding. We, of course, have had counselors available all day, both on and off campus. We opened up our student union and our library. Even though the university was technically closed, we thought that those were important places where students might want to gather with faculty and staff to share their feelings about yesterday's events. And as I mentioned, tomorrow we go back on normal operating status, and those buildings will be open as they usually are. We did stand up a family assistance center this morning in the Student Activities Center, but we did not have a huge outpouring of traffic, so we are back to relying upon our Dean of Students and other offices on campus to support any students, faculty, or staff in need of support or logistics. So with that, I think, again, I thank you for your attention. And I guess we go to questions?
Can you discuss your officer's action when you first walked in and how he was able by himself to apprehend the suspect?
So a lot of those specifics are critical to the investigation at this time, but I can assure you that Sergeant Gundacker, when he got in there, he is a man of action, and he knew exactly what he needed to do. So he was able to take control of the suspect.
Can you spell Sergeant Gundacker's last name and Lieutenant Smyer's last name, please?
Certainly. It's Gundackerer, Smyere.
And Sarah, Sarah.
Yes.
Yes. Talk about some of the other officers who are going into, but also recruits the information to the broader
Certainly.
community. How critical is that?
It's extremely important. So one thing I do want to say is that Chancellor Dubois has invested numerous resources into the safety and security of UNC Charlotte, and it takes that level of commitment so that we can reach out to our community in situations like that in many ways, such as taking over all personal computer screens with what's called an alertus message. Some of you may have seen what that message looks like. That was taken over on all TV screens on campus, all desktops on campus. We sent out Live Safe messages. We have a personal safety app called Live Safe, very useful. We can also receive information on that Live Safe app. We also send out text messages, emails. All of this is done in minutes, which is obviously critical on a situation and on a response, because you've got to make sure that type of thing is done. We have an emergency management team that was also very active in assisting in the same way. So, you know, numerous modals to get that information out, to make sure people are aware and people knew, and, you know, to shelter in place. We also have the ability to lock down our campus by pressing one button in our emergency telecommunications center. We can press that button, and the exterior doors on our buildings on campus are locked.
What was the accused gunman's relationship with that classroom and with the students he accused of shooting?
You know, that's more getting in the specifics again of the investigation, and certainly this is CMPD's homicide investigation this time. It's something I'm not going to comment on. I'll let Chief Putney address that.
I'll make my detectives mad. I'll handle that one. We know there was some familiarity with that building in particular. Beyond that, I can't really get into specifics, so the choice of that building was by design, was intentional.
Chief, I know you had a chance to question the gunman. In those interviews with the suspect, did he share any motive at all?
Unfortunately, this is an incident that really strikes a chord with us all, because we can't really discern the why just yet. It really appears that there was no specific person, but and the randomness is what's most concerning.
Chief Putney, Chair Foreman of the Associated Press.
I'm sorry, I can only hear one at a time, and really, yes, sir.
Chair Foreman of the Associated Press.
Yes, sir.
Word was circulating yesterday regarding the suspect and a possible psychological impairment which may
anyone in the early stages of the investigation been able to determine if there's any sort of impairment that may have affected his behavior leading up to the shooting?
Best way I can answer that is not to my knowledge, and if we did, that is not something we would discuss openly. That would be a part of the investigation too, and that would be considered way down the road, well beyond my role in this. Yes?
What can you share about the gun involved? Did he purchase this weapon? Was it purchased legally? Where was it purchased? What do you know about it?
At this point, all I know is the weapon was purchased. It was a handgun, and it was purchased legally.
By him?
Legally, yes.
Chief, can you talk a little bit?
Again, I don't know that specifically, and again, those are things that will come out later in the investigation. I'm not privy to that just yet. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little more about Riley's heroic actions, a little more detail about that, what he did?
Yes, and again, I got to be careful. I promised the father I wouldn't give too much detail, but ultimately what he did is what I talked about. You hide, you run, you shelter in place, you fight. And the last one is, if the other options aren't there, you fight. And he's an athletically built young man, and he took the fight to the assailant, and he unfortunately had to give his life to do so, but he saved lives doing so. So yes, sir, I'm going to finish. So what he did was he took the assailant off his feet, and then the heroes that we have here were able to apprehend from there.
He tackled him. Can we say that he tackled him? Is that fair?
That would be an understatement, but that would be appropriate.
So is it fair to say because of Riley's actions, he saved lives?
I said that specifically, and I'll say it again. Absolutely. Mr. Howell saved lives. Yes. Yes. Y'all going to have to raise your hands or something. This is getting out of control. Yes, sir.
Do you know if the gunman said anything specifically or in particular at the scene? This might be for some of the responding officers.
Again, they're not going to tell you either. We got to work through that. It's too soon to talk specifically about what might have been said. Yes, sir.
Did the suspect confess to anything? Did you learn anything about any plans during the interrogation?
Again, I can't speak to that. That's way too deep into the investigation. But you will get those facts as it progresses into the hands of the district attorney. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, this is the latest in a line of campus shootings and school shootings. Did any prior school shootings play a part in this with the suspect? Do you know if any?
Again,
did he reference any?
what I'll tell you is, unfortunately, there are people who want to replicate stuff like that, unfortunately. But again, you'll get more detail than you can stomach at the right time, and this is not the right time. Yes?
Did he have more than one magazine clip? Did he have numerous magazine clips with him, or just what was listed?
There was quite a bit of ammo. I'm not going to get into how many magazines at this point. Again, I'm trying to, guys, I can't sacrifice. I told you, we're going to seek facts, and we want justice. I'm not going to impair a trial that is yet to even begin by getting into those technicalities and specifics. Yes, sir. Oh, you changed? You don't have a question now?
The officers, were they wearing body cams at the time of approaching the suspect?
Yes, there are relevant body-worn camera video footage. Yes.